What up, what up, what up, streaming gang? It is great to be back with you on this beautiful Wednesday. I am live from my home studio in my apartment in Miami, Florida. It's 3 p.m. Eastern time, and we've got a lot to talk about today on the stream. I hope you are buckled in, ready to go. It has been the craziest news week maybe in the history of my time as a content creator, and we're trying to cover as many of our bases as we possibly can here on the stream this week. Tomorrow, just as a heads up, we will be going back to talk about everything that's happening in Israel and in the Middle East. If you guys haven't been following the news, there's a lot going on in the last 24 hours when it comes to escalation from Hezbollah, from Lebanon. U.S. embassies all across the Middle East are currently being attacked and or set on fire and or very violently protested by various groups of people. There's a lot of confusion out there about what bomb went off where and who killed who. It's extremely confusing. So we're going to come back to everything tomorrow on the stream about that and talk to one of our amazing friends who is a military veteran. I don't know if I should give it away for you yet. Who's going to be? I'll give it away. It's fine. Graham Allen will be joining us on the stream tomorrow to give his take as a vet, what probably might happen or what's expected to happen from a military standpoint in the United States and around the world in this conflict. So excited to jump into back into all of that with you guys tomorrow. But today we are talking about an issue that hits a little bit closer to home for many of us, and is something that we deal with on a day-by-day basis, but for whatever reason continues to need to be said, even though it is the easiest sentiment every single day that we should all just be aware of when it comes to the easiest, most basic scientific truths about the world. Men are men, and women are women, and men cannot be women, and women cannot be men. Shocking, I know. Sorry if I just lost a bunch of new people on the outset of this stream by saying that, but even though that is one of the simplest, most fundamental truths about the universe, I guess we just have to keep saying it in perpetuity over and over and over and over and over again, like freaking Groundhog Day, because the world can't quite figure out what is true and what is a lie. Even on the big issues like the Israel conflict that we're going to talk about later this week more in depth, and all the way down to the most simple biological truths about the universe. Shocker, women are still under massive attack from all sides culturally all over the world, not just in the United States. But we have a lot to talk about with a few specific stories today on how that is continuing to manifest in 2023 and how we can fight back against it. So buckle up, because we got a lot to cover, and this woman is continually offended by men trying to erase her and everyone like her. So we've got a lot of feelings to share on the stream today. I got my Olipop, I'm all buckled in, I'm ready to go, and I hope you guys are as well. We're gonna kick things off on the stream today by saying hi to some people in our live chat. So if you guys are just now joining us, let us know who you are, where you're watching from, and especially if you are a first-time viewer on the stream. Let's start over on Rumble today, which is very fun. John is first up in our chat. Hey, John. And Tuco Wright says happy Wednesday. Over on YouTube, we've got Total Package, Daloon, Jake, Shalom, Obadiah watching. Brenda says, ¿Cómo estás, jefa? I'm the jefa, gracias. I'm doing very well. How are you, Brenda? Daloon is here. We've got Mr. Master and Step Fam Studio watching. Famil just tuned in. Mayana is watching. Hello, glad you are here. Sabrav is here. Drew just tuned in. And more. Famil is watching from France. So very cool. We are glad you are here. Thank you so much for joining us. Over on Getter, Nitty Witty, and Gary Upchurch are kicking things off for us in the chat. Crazy Cat Lady, Alex, Johnny, Mountain Lover, and I'm scrolling through. Tito are joining us over on Locals. So glad you guys are here, and I can't wait for our post-game Q&A with you, because I've just got a lot of things to get off my chest today over on Locals. As we're getting started today, you guys, if you could do me a huge favor and hit the like button on this stream so that it picks up in the algorithm as we continue talking. That might look like a little thumbs up button or a little heart. Make sure that you ring the notification bell to always know when we are going live or uploading a new video. video. And most importantly, you know the drill if you guys watch very regularly, smash that follow or subscribe button to make sure that you always know where all of our content is going and help us to grow these communities. I'll tell you what, I told you the last several months in a row that we've just had insane, unprecedented growth on Instagram and TikTok in particular this year. And honestly, being an expert in social media and somebody who does this for a living, I cannot logically explain to you how that happened. You say one controversial, very objectively true thing, but very controversial thing about conflict in the Middle East, and you will lose a lot of followers and then just completely flatline. So, I want to just say up front, I don't do what I do to try to gain a ton of followers. I don't do what I do or ask you guys to subscribe to try to have internet fame or something. That's the dumbest thing anybody could be pursuing because it is so unbelievably fleeting. I say it all the time. I do what I do and I have this job and I work for myself and we figure out how to make that happen because I feel this insatiable calling to get up every day and tell people the truth in a world that is rejecting the very concept of objective truth. And more often than not, that doesn't look like adoration or praise from other people. That looks like a lot of backlash and hatred, but it doesn't stop what we are going to do, and it doesn't stop the need for the world to hear the truth with every passing day, especially as we continue to attack it more and more and more. And it's this snowball rolling down the hill, it seems, with every passing minute. So every single time you guys hit follow, every single time you guys hit subscribe, it's not for me. It's not so that I can have this following or this number or whatever. It's so that other people can participate in these true, live, authentic, unscripted conversations, and we can try to get the truth out there in as many ways as we can. As independent people, we are not owned by a media company around here. We definitely aren't told what to say, but to a world and a generation that desperately needs to hear it. All right, let's jump right in. You guys, lots to talk about today, but I want to start with this story that I saw unfolding on Instagram in the last few days. I was clicking through a ton of Instagram stories and just kind of letting them play as I do every once in a while. And Allie Beth Stuckey's story came up, who's great, by the way. I absolutely adore her work and such a kind person. But she had shared something to her story from a post of an art student who is currently enrolled at the Savannah College of Art and Design. And if you guys don't know much about SCAD or you've never heard about SCAD, SCAD, or the Savannah College of Art and Design, is one of the most prestigious art schools, art programs in the United States of America. People who go to SCAD often go for photography, or they could go for design, or they could go for fashion, or literally any program under the sun. Anything you can imagine in the world of art, it exists at SCAD, and it is extremely prestigious. It's extremely difficult to get into, and a very well-renowned and respected program. A young woman who is in the Savannah College of Art and Design decided to put together a photo essay project for her course in art. I'm presuming that she's a photography student. I actually don't know too much about her background, but I would love to have her on the stream and ask her more about it. It says on her Instagram that she's a graphic designer, so maybe she's in school for graphic design or photography. But she's currently enrolled at SCAD, and she decided to put together this photo essay project about womanhood, and specifically the duality of woman, your more feminine side and your occasional more masculine side, and wanted to feature a very courageous young woman who we have talked about here on the program. We are hoping to have on the program in the future, Chloe Cole. If you're not familiar with Chloe, Chloe is a young woman. I think she's 19 now. I could be wrong, but is very outspoken as a detransitioner. When she was a very, very young teenager, she was pushed into transitioning her gender into a male, underwent a double mastectomy, had very extreme hormone therapy put upon her by her school guidance counselors, by her physicians, by the people that she was supposed to trust as adults, and they really let her down. Now, as an adult, she is detransitioning. She's reuniting with her biological gender that she was born with, and since then, Chloe has testified on Capitol Hill about child gender transition. She's been extremely outspoken in many different media interviews, and she uses her own social media to tell her story and the stories of other detransitioners that often get censored all over the internet. She is a true hero and somebody who is absolutely inspiring and definitely deserves a bigger platform. So I loved seeing that this girl who is a student at SCAD deciding to put together this project was able to feature Chloe Cole. But Allie Beth Stuckey ended up sharing this post to her story because once this girl decided to make this her project and once it was posted to the world, the entire student body at Savannah College of Art and Design has now come for her neck, basically, and demanded that she be expelled from art school for creating art because it was offensive and it was transphobic and it's doing all of the wrong things to be welcoming and inclusive in a liberal arts college and arts program. You can make up your mind for yourself if you actually think this is transphobic. I think it's incredibly courageous and is very objectively cool art. Like the art itself is incredibly compelling and very interesting. It's what art is supposed to be instead of the new age crap where we just like paint a circle on a canvas and we sell that for $50 million. Because that's art. Art is always going to be subjective, but I think objectively, this project is very compelling, very cool, and provides a very interesting commentary on one of society's biggest, most compelling cultural issues. The student who put this project together, her name is Mags Butera, and she decided to put together this photo essay. I'll see if I can make this a little bit bigger for you guys because I know Instagram is a little small when we do these screen shares. Put this photo essay together. I'll read her caption first and then we'll go through some of the comments. She said, "You do not have to like the truth and it can even hurt to hear, but that does not change the truth." Boom! Like that alone, love. On board. You have hooked me from moment one. Chloe Cole is a detransitioner, meaning at the age of 13, she was put on testosterone and puberty blockers. By 15, she had had a double mastectomy. And by 16, she detransitioned. She reunited with her biological womanhood. Her parents were fed the lie by the medical industry that they could either have a dead daughter or a living son, which is a very common talking point that is being pushed upon parents right now whose children are coming home from school and saying, "I'm transgender, I need to transition, or I'm going to unalive myself." In reality, transitioning does nothing, and in some studies, it actually suggests it exacerbates suicide rates. So very, very common, but shallow and empty lie that's being given to these parents. In her own words, she said, "I didn't need to be lied to. I needed compassion. I needed to be loved. I need to be getting therapy to help me work through my issues, not affirmed to my delusion that by transforming into a boy, it would solve all of my problems." Chloe is far from the only person to have been sold this lie. She was a kid who would later go on to regret these life-altering permanent decisions. Our intent with this project is not to spread hate or judgment, but to engage in open and respectful dialogue about issues that are often ignored or shut down because they do not fit in line with the talking points of the mainstream media. And here are some of the photos that they put together. This is Chloe off to the side here. They put her in front of a TV screen. It's very like Y2K Gen Z origin story vibes, which I think is really cool. It says, "Repeat after me, trans women are men," on the screen. This was showcasing the more masculine side of Chloe's transition story. And you can see that in how they did her makeup and how they dressed her. And then this was the more feminine side of her reunification with her biological womanhood. They put a bunch of pink everywhere and tuned into her femininity, and it was very fun and playful. It's very much giving Lizzie McGuire vibes to me right now, just like instantaneously. The hat, the bows, the bubble gum, the fun see-through sunglasses. Like, this is very early 2000s vibes, and I love it. I am here for it, and I love that we're trying to resurrect that. And then they featured Chloe with a bunch of newspapers because she has very much been in the news as a controversial figure the last several years. But I think this project is just beautiful, right? Like, the photos in and of themselves are absolutely spectacular. On Chloe's Instagram, Chloe ended up sharing a bunch of these posts herself and shared her experience being a part of the project. She said, "This is the feminine concept of the Duality of Woman project, a photo shoot that aims to capture women's individuality, the stories of detransitioned girls and women like me, and to encourage open and respectful dialogue around transitioning." I think these photos are so fun, artistically very well put together, very well structured. I'm a bit of an art nerd myself, so we love to see that. And it's very girly and very, very feminine, like hyper feminine. And I think that's really fun. But that wasn't the only side of the project that they did. They also did a more masculine side. She said, "This is part 2 of the Duality of Woman photo shoot, The Masculine." And you can see in how they styled this shoot, it was really powerful. On the top computer screen there, that's her testifying before Congress. You can see on the top computer screen in this photo a cover of a book called Irreversible Damage, which I often recommend to people who watch the stream or who watch any of my other content. Controversial but important book written by an independent journalist named Abigail Schreier about how the American medical industry is really pushing young women into transitioning, young women in particular, and how this isn't like a reversible thing where you can just stop taking these hormones. This isn't something that you can go back to being a girl very easily from. More often than not, you are going to have permanent physical, emotional, mental damage that nobody really wants to talk about and that parents aren't being made aware of in the midst of these conversations. So I thought that was interesting that they shared this book because it's hugely important, but rarely talked about or given the platform it deserves. There's that same photo, repeat after us, trans women are men. Interestingly, J.K. Rowling, who's been hugely outspoken on behalf of biological womanhood on this issue, shared this post to her Twitter this week. Not the picture of Chloe, but the same graphic, repeat after us, trans women are men. She's only a child. This was her interview with Jordan Peterson. I love this. I think it's so interesting. Like, the art of this is so unbelievably fascinating. But as expected, even though the project itself is beautiful and starts a very compelling, interesting conversation, which is kind of what the point of art is supposed to be, right? Even though it pushes boundaries and even though it's trying to create a respectful and non-hateful dialogue, as both Mags and Chloe were abundantly clear about on social media, the woke cancel culture mob, especially fellow students at Savannah College of Art and Design, art school, I'm not really sure why we're super surprised by this, but I was really surprised to see how truly negative the response was. They come for this student like the guillotine, like demanding for her head and demanding that she be expelled from art school for spreading hate. Some of these comments will just blow your mind. Maybe if you quit using them damn books as props and read one, you wouldn't have these garbage takes. Next person, the fact that Candace Owens and the New York Post, both openly transphobic, are your sources just shows you didn't even try to understand any other perspective rather than right-wing bigoted views. Okay. Imagine being transphobic at a liberal arts school. Unbelievable. There was, of course, some really positive responses, and after Allie Beth Stuckey shared this to her story, many people like me, other very outspoken female, more conservative content creators, all were flooding the comments of this. There's a lot of positive ones too, but first it was incredibly insane. Mid and why even bother, like you Y2K'd transphobia, that don't make sense. Interesting. There is a tasteful way to voice opinions and views, even if they're wrong. This is the antithesis of doing so. It's harmful and lacking empathy. I worry about your ability to be hired in the future if you continue to make art following this embarrassing and uneducated showing. Common cis detransitioner L. So the only way that you could get a W is if you were a transitioner. If you want to detransition and reunite with your actual biological identity, even though can't we all just identify as what we want to identify as? Wasn't that supposed to be the whole point here? No, you can't get a W if you do that. It's a common L if you decide to detransition. Fascinating. Your experience does not represent everyone's experience. I'm sorry that you had a bad experience with transitioning, but the statistics don't lie. Of course, the statistics that they're probably going to quote here are probably extremely narrow and limiting. They probably haven't done a lot of research about this. When you take away gender-affirming care, suicide rates go up. That is objectively not true, by the way. That's just like, there are so many studies that debunk that. That is not true. You can choose to ignore that fact and spread hatred to an already vulnerable and massively hated community, or you can let people have agency over their own bodies if it doesn't match how they feel inside. Trans people have existed throughout history. It's a natural part of life and a natural human experience for millions of people. If you have to take hormones that your body is not naturally producing, if you have to chop off the genitals that your body naturally grew, and if you have to undergo extensive, very invasive, dangerous procedures to give you body parts that your body didn't naturally grow, no part of this process is natural. I don't know how else more clearly to say that as somebody with 2 degrees in biomedical sciences, as someone who has done extensive research on this subject, and as someone who just cares about the well-being of young women in particular, because the feminists sure as hell aren't caring these days. This is not natural. No part of this is natural. We can talk about whether or not it's ever warranted. I think that's a fair conversation to have. But how interesting that the indoctrination is running that deep with students in college and young people today that we call this a natural part of life and a natural human experience for millions of people. Interesting. Yikes. It's one thing to share a person's story and another to invalidate the entire transgender community. What part of this photo essay invalidated anyone's existence? Anybody? Crickets. I mean, the lies that these people will come up with, the accusations that these people will come up with to just try to silence any dialogue, any legitimate conversation based in true compassion or anyone's lived experience with this because they're afraid of getting canceled, they're afraid of not being popular, they're afraid of pushing the boundaries of society is wild to me. And the fact that this is happening at an art school, not at a buttoned up, fancy, private, prestigious program in English or in history, not in science where things are allegedly objectively true, obviously not based on my own experience in college, but art school, where the entire point is to be avant-garde. The entire point is to push the boundaries of culture and society. The entire point is to create interesting cultural commentary through a different medium than just talking, through art in some capacity. And we're calling this evil now. So what is the point of art? If you can't push the boundaries, if you can't have interesting conversations, if you can't go against the cultural grain, what even is art? A red circle on a canvas? I mean, honestly, I think it's a very valid question for us to be asking. The hate ended up spreading all over the internet. And again, many of Mags's fellow students at SCAD are just calling for her head, saying that she needs to be expelled from the program, saying that she should never find a job in the art community or in the art world ever again. Her fellow students ended up tweeting a whole lot of things like, I cannot stop thinking about a student at SCAD making a photo shoot advocating for transphobia, not what the shoot did at all, and tagging dozens of Fox News types, hoping for 15 minutes of fame, then feigning being cyberbullied. She didn't fake anything. You just read all of those comments. Despite her photos literally saying trans men are women makes me sick. Oh, I have to scroll back up. Sorry. She used school facilities to create blatant images of hate speech. She tagged Joe Rogan and Candace Owens, but is still saying, all I want to do is protect children. What about trans children seeing you and your ilk, saying they're disgusting and dangerous and going to hell? Where was that? I missed that in the project. In case you guys saw anywhere in the project where it said children who are struggling with their gender identity are disgusting, dangerous, and going to hell. Not at all what was conveyed. But of course, these people will just look at one image and they'll freak out. Like they remotely have a challenge to their worldview and they literally cannot handle any sort of discourse or dialogue whatsoever, which is really scary, honestly. It's damaging to think about what these universities have done to students and our inability to have an actual conversation. It goes on to say all her photos are telling her queer and trans friends, classmates, and associates that she hates them, no, and wishes harm on them, no, and wishes they didn't exist, no. She knows exactly what she's doing, and SCAD just lets it happen because art school is supposed to allow people to create art. I don't feel like it is that difficult for us to wrap our brains around. It is not that difficult of a concept to grasp, people. Interestingly, while most people would have completely backed down and backed off the subject and apologized or deleted the project, Mags decided to keep speaking up. She decided to double down and go even further, which I thought was incredibly courageous and brave. She shared some more photos from the project that I think are really cool. Like, just the art of this is fascinating. I love it, including this fun picture of her doing the project with Chloe and how much fun they're having. I love these pictures. I think they're so cool. And she said, Chloe Cole's story will not be swept under the rug. We will not cower to the death threats, cyberbullying, and disregard for civil conversation. We will not cower to the student body's threat to get us kicked out of our university. A university should be a place where we can have civil discourse, learn, and hear new ideas and perspectives that challenge our own. Just because someone's beliefs are different from yours does not make it hate speech or transphobia. I would like to acknowledge the fact that the people who preach everyone is welcome here and and hate has no home here are the exact people who have told me to unalive myself, die in a car crash, get put in a saw trap so painful and inescapable that it is not even worth trying to save yourself. Very specific. Or wish that I form a rash and the fine little layers of your skin start to peel with such vigor that no skin graft will ever truly heal the scars left over. I guess art students still are creative, just not in the realm of art. Instead, in how they express their disdain for other artists' art. Very bizarre. To those people commenting these things, I love you. I'm happy you are here, and I would love to engage in civil discourse on these matters. Yes, I continue to acknowledge biological reality. Men have XY chromosomes, and women have XX chromosomes. Men cannot be women. Women cannot be men. Children cannot consent to cross-sex hormones or procedures cutting off their private parts. Acknowledging these things is not hate. It is seeking the truth and what is good and right in the world. I do not hate LGBTQ plus people. And I can assure you, no one on this project does. I am blown away by this young woman's courage, by her conviction, by her willingness to seek truth, even in the midst of a culture and an environment that is actively trying to prevent her from doing so, and accusing her of saying certain people shouldn't exist, while they all literally send her the most graphic, weird, ultra-specific death threats I've ever heard. The irony and the mental gymnastics, like it is just impossible to try to wrap your head around. But good for you, Mags. If you happen to see this, we are cheering you on and we hope you all the best success in your art career. But isn't it wild how even at art school, even at an environment where you are supposed to actively be encouraging the exploration of culture's biggest subjects, to start interesting, compelling conversations, to be avant-garde, to push the boundaries of society and culture, we are now so obsessed with bowing down to whatever the loudest voice is saying that we refuse to foster any creativity. And sadly, art school is not the only place where this insanity continues to occur. We've obviously seen quite a bit of this in the social media realm. And we've talked about it a lot within the realm of certain influencers who are biological men transitioning into women. They are trans women. And one name sticks out more than anything else. I'm sure you guys know where I'm going with this, but there is a biological man who is now on their, I don't know what day, we're quite on 500 something probably, day of being a woman, because that's what constitutes womanhood now, who has taken many opportunities on social media to promote their version of womanhood that isn't quite on the money, in my opinion. It seems like this costume, woman face level of hyperbolizing, is that even a word? Creating a hyperbolic narrative out of what womanhood is supposed to be, and that individual is Dylan Mulvaney. Dylan Mulvaney, if you guys don't already know, is one of the most popular TikTokers on the platform of TikTok, and at this point, one of the most successful influencers on the face of the planet. I have said before, and I will say again until I am blue in the face, I have literally no personal ill will against this person. I actually think it's really sad how our culture of immediate affirmation is very damaging, and I think when you watch Dylan's videos, you can see behind all of the layers of makeup and surgery and long hair and frilly costumes and all of that, there's a sadness in Dylan's eyes that is really hard to try to wrap your head around and comprehend. Of course, he would never admit that himself. But it is sad. It's really sad and hard to watch how we all cheer this on and we applaud it and we repost it, trying to gain talking points or progressive win points for all of our friends and all of our social media followers, instead of seeing the true reality of what's going on behind the scenes. But Dylan has come under fire many, many, many times over the last year or so. He put together a one-man, one-woman show about days of girlhood for the 1-year anniversary of being a woman that was very controversial and called out a lot of conservative influencers in New York City. Dylan was the face of Bud Light most recently, which spurred the Bud Light boycott. I'm sure many of you guys are familiar with that and or participated in that. Has also been the recipient of many other brand deals and opportunities to make a buttload of money on social media talking about womanhood when they themselves are not a genetic woman, which blows my mind, including from Kate Spade, women's luxury brand, and from frickin' Tampax. Where you are going to put it, I don't exactly know, but this is a very bizarre trend that we've seen going very viral over the last year and a half or so. There is an update to the Dylan Mulvaney saga. And again, I don't have any ill personal will against this person. I think the opportunities that they are taking away from women are unfortunate and very sad, and I wish that wasn't the case. But I hope and I wish somebody would have the courage to love Dylan enough to say you didn't need to be a girl in order to be happy, in order to feel joy. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of people in their life that seem to be willing to do that. But if I knew this person and I had an opportunity to connect with them, I would absolutely sit down for a cup of coffee and be willing to have that conversation. And I wish them all the best, but this is not the best. And it's very, very sad. Most recently, the update to the saga, The Guardian reported a few days ago, Dylan Mulvaney, and this all kind of got swept under the rug in the media because we've been covering war and conflict and other very important things, but I do think it's important to draw attention to. Dylan Mulvaney won an award from a magazine, Attitude magazine in the United Kingdom, to be their Woman of the Year. First ever time the Woman of the Year award has been given to a trans woman, a biological male, Dylan Mulvaney. The Guardian reported after gaining Attitude magazine's first ever Woman of the Year award, U.S. trans activist Dylan Mulvaney, who, by the way, has been given opportunities to go speak with the president at official roundtables at the White House, is a constant award winner for human rights and speaking out about all of this stuff, said receiving such recognition from the UK-based LGBTQ plus publication means so much more after a substantial transphobic backlash undermined her Bud Light advertisement. No matter how hard I try or what I wear or what I say or what surgeries I get, I will never reach an acceptable version of womanhood by those hateful people's standards, Mulvaney said. But as long as I have the queer community that sees me for my truth, not the truth, my truth, I'm gonna be okay. This Bud Light boycott that he was talking about, said that sales went down 27% year on year as of September. The brand lost its place as the U.S. beer market's top seller. And it was going super viral all over social media, if you guys remember seeing all of that just a few months ago. But I want to come back to this quote because I think it's really interesting how the comments on Mags's post from SCAD, the backlash / alleged backlash you're starting to see Dylan talk about, and what we're about to talk about as our last story here in a minute, all have the exact same talking points, right? Everything is, if you don't affirm me as a woman, even though I am a male, if you don't accept that I am a woman and I deserve Woman of the Year awards and I deserve to biologically carry and birth a child, which Dylan has said on podcasts, because that's what women do. If you don't affirm that I deserve brand deals from Tampax or that I deserve opportunities to be the woman face of whatever, then you hate me. Right? You either fear me, because we use this word transphobic all the time, or you hate me. In no way, shape, or form is that objectively true at all. At all. It is not objectively true in any way, shape, or form. Speaking the truth, not my truth or your truth, but the truth that men are men and women are women and men cannot become women and women cannot become men doesn't mean I hate you. It doesn't mean I wish ill upon you. It certainly doesn't mean I'm afraid of you. I'm not afraid of you in any specific instance, but I don't hate you for that. It's fascinating how our up is down and down is up and left is right and right is left society is allowing something that is actually loving to be called hateful. Is suggesting that affirming somebody doesn't mean affirming them for who God created them to be, who they were born to be, even if you don't believe in God, who they biologically are, what their true identity actually is. We call affirmation affirming the delusion that they are not who they are, that they need to be something else. We call transphobia, the fear of trans people, suggesting that men are different from women. In no part is that invalidating somebody's existence. That doesn't mean that you are afraid of somebody's existence. Rather, you're just willing to say objective truth and to love someone enough to say you don't need to put yourself through the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual irreversible damage, especially as a child, that comes with transitioning in order to feel love, in order to feel accepted. And if you look at this comment, this remark that was made on stage by Dylan, that's exactly what you can see he is trying to achieve. no matter how hard I try, no matter what I wear, no matter what I say, no matter what surgeries I get, I won't be accepted. I will never reach an acceptable version of womanhood, but really what that means is I will never be accepted. How unbelievably sad is that? I mean, that honestly breaks my heart because it's the exact same line of talking points. It's the exact same script that everybody over in Mags's comment section was saying from her SCAD project. You hate people. You don't want them to exist. You say that the validation of trans people's existence isn't important to you. To the contrary, anyone experiencing a struggle with their gender identity being different from their true biological gender, that's a tragedy. That deserves our attention. That deserves our actual medical care, not our affirmation into denying yourself. I know that sounds like an oxymoron because it is. They deserve our actual acceptance, our actual love, our actual affirmation. But how interesting that in a world where we say there is no difference between men and men can be women and women can be men can be mothers, men can be pregnant, men can be women of the year, men can be whatever they want to be. We've perverted everything. Not just biological truth. We've perverted acceptance. We've perverted love. We've invalidated the actual existence of that person by saying we demand that you be something else in order to experience love. How come nobody is talking about that? It is the most backwards, unaccepting, unloving, condemning thing that we could possibly do to other people. But nobody is willing to explore that or even start asking the questions about it. Instead, we celebrate this and we cheer it on and we give awards for this while we see the sadness and the continued pleas for acceptance and the continued begging for a community from people who really, really need it. From people experiencing a level of brokenness I personally will never be able to empathize with. I don't know what that feels like, but I can sympathize for that. I'm sure it is unbelievably confusing and frustrating and hurtful to not feel like you were born in the right body. But if we really wanted to affirm this person, if we really wanted to love this person, if we really wanted to accept this person, why are we pushing them into becoming a different person entirely? I'm not making this up. It is Dylan who said this. No matter how hard I try or what I wear or what I say or what surgeries I get, I will never be accepted. So I have to keep leaning into my truth instead of seeking the truth. Our celebration of this has just turned so upside down and so wild. Publications like Teen Vogue publish stories like this recently. Dylan Mulvaney opens up about embracing trans joy. This got published yesterday. Yeah, in case you thought Teen Vogue was still a magazine telling young women what to wear to homecoming or how they should approach their crush in how they text them, or, oh my gosh, you have butterflies before your first kiss. Let's talk about why you're nervous. Yeah, now it's all about, literally, I'm not making this up, like why Karl Marx was the greatest politician of all time. They actually ran a story about that. Embracing trans joy. I'll show you some of their other headlines here in just a second, but that's the prerogative of groups like Teen Vogue now, publications like Teen Vogue. Just yesterday, they posted this. If Dylan Mulvaney's happiness online seems like an act, think again. That is the first sentence of this article, because that's what everybody's thinking, because that's what everybody can see with our own two eyes. It's not difficult to peel back the layer and the filter and the makeup. It seems like an act because we think this person is really hurting, is really struggling. And instead of actually trying to help them, we just go, you go, girl. You get that Tampax brand deal. What? But you can't say that because that's not the world we live in. You have to say that you have to lean into trans joy, which is different from cisgender joy. And she's just being her authentic self. If you have to take hormones and have to have surgeries and have to change every single thing about your appearance, how is that your authentic self? I cannot emotionally or logically try to figure out what that is supposed to mean. Right? How unbelievably sad. Women's magazines feed into this nonsense every single day, among other nonsense every single day, and just try to confuse us with every passing day. Some other Teen Vogue articles in their politics section, which covers immigration, environment, justice, government, and history, include this actress knows that transphobes are just chicken. The U.S. criminal justice system is sexist, so they're trying to confuse you not just on your gender identity, but what womanhood actually means and looks like in society. That this state senator made history as being the first openly LGBTQ plus senator in Georgia. They went on to say, oh, I missed this. The podcast that's highlighting the impact of anti-LGBTQ plus policy through one powerful story. These banned books that erase LGBTQ people, but are really just graphic porn, just straight up pornography in your child's elementary school. Not invalidating anyone's existence, just saying, maybe your fifth grader probably shouldn't be watching porn in elementary school. And if you think it stops for teenagers, think again. For adult women, what's the most popular women's magazine, maybe in history? Cosmopolitan magazine, which has always been extremely raunchy. It's always been very out there. But these days is honestly just disgusting. Cosmopolitan has a whole section on their website called Taps Mike. Ding, ding, ding. In case nobody's paying attention to us, 5 people opening up about their personal experiences with gender-affirming care. Because making people change everything about themselves is the only way to affirm them, is the only way to welcome them, is the only way to love them, or uphold or validate their existence in society. And it doesn't just stop at gender. As I said, they try to confuse you about everything else because Cosmopolitan magazine is still screaming about repro rights, that if you're having an abortion at home, you can call someone to talk about it. Because the truth is, it sucks, but we don't want to talk about that. The truth is, it's terrible, but we don't want to talk about that. We want to say it's really good. It's a beautiful, wonderful thing that we need to continue to be fighting for. None of this makes any sense. And over the last several years, we've watched this escalate beyond anything we probably ever imagined it would, right? It started with just saying, well, just let people have whatever pronouns they want. And then it turned into, well, you know, men should probably be able to play sports with women. And even though that's not safe or okay, we'll accept it because we feel bad for this person being invalidated by society. And then it turned into, well, maybe we shouldn't in clinical medical settings call women women anymore. We should call them birthing people or people with uteruses or people who menstruate. And let's make sure that we stock up tampons in all of the men's bathrooms on every college campus in America. Where, by the way, at Clemson University this week, there was a massive protest because the student government didn't want to keep paying for tampons in the men's restroom anymore. So they quietly took them out, and the whole campus was metaphorically set ablaze for this because people were so outraged that you could not find a tampon in the men's bathroom, in a man's bathroom above the urinal. Yeah, that's how far we let that go. And then it turned into, well, we should just award men Women of the Year awards. And we should just make men the best women's athletes. And then we should just let men take every single space that has ever been occupied by women because they deserve it more and men are the best women. And we've affirmed this delusion for so unbelievably long, or maybe been afraid of being canceled for so unbelievably long, that it has now manifested in every aspect of women's culture and celebration of womanhood, all the way up to the Miss Universe pageant. I am not a huge pageant person. I don't watch the Miss Universe pageant every single year. I participated in a pageant scholarship program or whatever after senior year of high school. I was in Distinguished Young Women. If you guys ever heard about that, I was the girl from Colorado. But now we're seeing this go all the way up to Miss Universe, which is supposed to be the single most quintessential celebration of the most beautiful woman on the face of the planet. Not anymore, because for the first time ever, Miss Universe as a competition will feature 2 trans contestants for the first time. CNN Style covered this just a few days ago. This is the biological male trans woman who won Miss Netherlands in July, will be competing in November for Miss Universe, and now Portugal has joined the Netherlands in naming a 23-year-old trans woman to be Miss Portugal and represent their country at Miss Universe. There are other countries who still have yet to decide, by the way, so it's at least 2 men competing as women in Miss Universe. And of course, what's the number one thing that they're using to talk about on their platform? Trans rights. Describing rising levels of transphobia and intolerance worldwide as alarming. She added that it was heartwarming to see the Miss Universe organization, which changed its rules to allow trans contestants in 2012, being inclusive and breaking boundaries. But the moment you even say, hang on a second, isn't the Miss Universe pageant supposed to celebrate womanhood? Isn't the Miss Universe pageant supposed to be about beauty of feminine women? What are you labeled for? What's the number one talking head script that all of these people will accuse you of? Hatred. Hatred. Even though you don't hate these people, I don't have any ill will against these people whatsoever. In fact, I really feel bad that these people are being used in many ways to further a societal agenda or a political agenda. That really shouldn't be the case. But the number one thing you will be accused of every single time you try to stand up for biological women, for the right of women to exist, for the right of women to have women's only spaces, for the right of women to safely compete in sports with other women, for the right of women to celebrate women's beauty at women's beauty pageants and more, you are targeted as somebody spreading hate speech. Hate is love. And right is wrong, and down is up, and men are women. Men are the best women, I guess, now. Which honestly blows my mind. And as you guys are all saying in the chat, TZ Patriot just said the hashtag #MeToo movement should be wildly offended by this. Honestly, the number one question that I continue to have as these stories continue pouring out is, where the hell are the feminists? Where are the people that burned their bras in the street to be accepted and welcomed and actually affirmed as women in society? Where are the people who fought for Title IX? Because Title IX is like halfway out the door already, by the way. It just probably will cease to exist. And shout out to amazing people like Riley Gaines who are fighting with everything they have to make sure that women can have safe opportunities and fair opportunities to compete in sports. Where are the people who claim that we live in a patriarchy? Because the only true patriarchal thing that I am seeing in society today is men becoming the best women. Is men taking women's spaces. It is like a constant playbook. We do it in sports. That worked really well. So we did it for influencers. That worked really well. So now we're doing it for beauty queens. That's working really well. Then we do it for moms. Who needs a mom? We don't need that. Heck, we'll just grow your eggs in a laboratory startup in San Francisco, which we've talked about on the stream. We've covered at length. We are witnessing in real time, right before our very eyes, the overt erasure of women. And instead of feminists taking to the streets to burn our bras again, to protest, to say, I am a woman, hear me roar, not only are we even silent about this, but women cheer this crap on. Women applaud this. Women repost it to their Instagram stories to try to get brownie points for being the most woke and the most inclusive and the most open-minded person on the face of the planet. What are we doing? I know it probably seems trivial in the middle of the world on the brink of World War III talking about this today. And maybe it doesn't feel as important, or maybe it's something that feels like it doesn't deserve a platform. But I actually think this is important. This is of the utmost importance, because if we can convince entire generations of people that the most simple, fundamental biological realities about the world and about ourselves, that XX chromosomes means woman and XY chromosomes means man, that men are men and women are women and men cannot become women and women cannot become men, if we can convince people that all of those objective, scientific, proven truths that have existed for all of human history are lies or propaganda or are hateful, oppressive language that's trying to invalidate the existence of certain people, and you never want to be accused of that, then we can convince people of anything. If we can convince people that the best beauty queens are men, if we can convince people that the best female athletes are men, if we can convince people that the people who deserve brand deals and buttloads of blank checks from tampon companies don't even have a vagina, if we can convince people that it's not women, it's people who menstruate, and it's not moms, it's birthing people, and it's not breastfeeding, it's chest feeding, we can convince people of anything. And what I've seen more than anything else this week in the Western world, in the Western Hemisphere, in the United States and in Europe, has been just as much a war threat in real life, like troops on the ground and sending military equipment and everything to the other side of the world with the outbreak of chaos. We've seen just as important a war of information. And when nothing is believable anymore, because we have allowed lies to become truth and truth to be labeled and attacked and condemned as lies on something as simple as biological gender and your reality of who you are, whether you believe in God or not, who you were born as, and who I believe God designed you to be, it's so easy to suggest, that picture, that was doctored, that was AI, even when it wasn't, of burned babies. That report that you just saw of this huge invasion and all of these people dying, that's propaganda. That's not actually true, even though we have aerial footage that something like that happened. That didn't really happen because this person is the aggressor and this person isn't. Or this group is the aggressor and this person isn't. Oh yeah, we're going to tell you this story and we're going to feed you this narrative that is immediately picked up by all of the media, that a hospital gets bombed, for example, gets struck with a missile from one particular country, and then hours later we find out that wasn't even true. It was a misfire and it hit a parking lot. This is just as much this brink of world conflict and world war, a war of information, as it is a war of weapons, as it is a war of destruction, as it is a war of potential genocide. And I think we've all kind of been scratching our heads and watching this last few days on social media, all of these crazy posts going so viral all across the internet, and everyone's confusion on what is real and what is propaganda, what is a true thing that actually happened, a real event that actually happened and evidence to support it, and what is generated by AI or somehow photoshopped or misappropriated from a different point in time. And we wonder, how did we get here? How did we come to a point where people genuinely cannot believe anything because nothing is true or everything is true or some weird combination of the two? It's because for the last 5 to 10 years, our society has been convincing people that lies are truth and truth are lies, down to the most simple, fundamental biological realities on the planet that have always existed and will always continue to exist. I've warned about this for years at this point. When we first started seeing women being erased, I think arguably early 2020 is when we really started seeing a lot of this radical language like birthing people or people who menstruate start to be used. I've warned about our society looking a whole lot more like this with every passing day, if you've never read this book, where the ministry of truth is really dedicated to erasing truth and changing it and giving you propaganda instead of lies, because the people who control the language control the people and control our history and control our media and control the information that you receive. And it for years has sounded so hyperbolic, right? Me saying if they can convince you your gender is wrong, they can convince you of anything. But if this last week, with the conflict happening in the Middle East, with what's happening in Armenia, with everybody suggesting that everything is AI and nothing is real and everything is propaganda, if this isn't concrete evidence to you of the damage that these lies are doing to society, I don't know what else could possibly be more compelling. We are witnessing the slow unraveling of objective reality, and it's speeding up with every passing minute right before our very eyes. It's not even just about erasure of a single gender anymore. It is about constant confusion, constant propaganda, constant lies, to the point that when truth does come out, you can't recognize it as the truth. And how scary is that? If we as independent human beings cannot seek information, if we can't do research from an impartial perspective, if we can't challenge our own perspectives, if we can't find out all of the information possible from a 360-degree perspective to discern what is true and what is a lie, we will be the most manipulated, controlled people in all of human history. And for years, good people, for fear of not wanting to sound mean, for fear of getting canceled, for fear of maybe losing your job or having your friends not want to hang out with you anymore, have sat down and said nothing about stuff that at the time probably did seem really silly and trivial, like pronouns. Like, honestly, who really cared at the time, right? Like birthing people or people who menstruate or putting tampons in the men's bathroom. I mean, like, who really cared at the time, right? This is the end conclusion of that. Wars of information, or more accurately, wars of misinformation, turning into armed conflict, turning into genocide, because we cannot determine what is true and what is a lie. That should scare the hell out of you. But even before you get to that point, the erasure of women, period, no pun intended, should scare the hell out of you too. And if you are a woman and you are not actively speaking up about this today with whatever platform that you possibly have, it's time to start fighting. Not to be mean, not to invalidate anyone's existence, not to say that you hate anyone, but to courageously, defiantly love people, radically love people, to affirm them as who they truly are, to not want to put an entire next generation of women through arguably torture and irreversible damage, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and more, by transitioning, and then finding the need to detransition later on in life. To challenge the narratives of lies that have slowly become the mainstream truth. And to just be willing to take a stand for yourself, because there are few people who are willing to fight that fight today. And if you think that those few people with microphones are going to keep being able to do that on their own, think again. This is a fight that demands everyone, because this isn't a fight against certain people. This is a fight for reality. This is a fight for truth. This is a fight for our freedom to discern information that is slowly disappearing before our very eyes. And I say slowly, it's getting faster every single day. And if we don't fight for it today, we will lack the opportunity to fight for it tomorrow. Maybe literally tomorrow. Look at all of these online safety bills passing all over the world, many in the UK and Canada, for example. Look at the censorship and the misinformation that's happening with regard to this war in Gaza and Israel. This is scary stuff, because people who were good people, but who were afraid, sat down and said nothing and did nothing and let it happen. Don't be one of those people in 2023 and beyond. Crazy times that we are living in. We might have to do like a live view party of Miss Universe this year. That could be really fun, really interesting. I'll put together a good group of girls and we can do a live viewing party of all of that. I can tell you right now what's probably going to happen. One of those men, Netherlands or Portugal, is going to get crowned Miss Universe, because that's what we have to do now in order to prove that we are inclusive enough. And I'm sure all of this stuff with Dylan Mulvaney will continue escalating. I'm sure this student will continue facing insane backlash and death threats and calls for expulsion in art school. But if you're willing to be courageous, courage is contagious. Other people will speak up. Other people will seek the truth. Other people will start asking the questions. Don't back down, and choose to radically love people when our society desperately needs it the most. All right, you guys, we are going to jump over in just a few minutes to our locals community for our post-game Q&A, as we do every single day. We would love to see you guys over there. We've got a really fun and exciting new episode of our locals only exclusive content for our series called Domus on faith and the church tomorrow. I'm going to be joined by my awesome friend Nathan to talk about some hot takes that he has in the realm of Christian dating, which is going to be very, very fun. And I'm sure you guys are going to love hearing what he has to say. If you ever have any suggestions for stuff that you would like to see covered on the stream, Emerson, I saw you on Rumble, drop something in our chat. Please always feel free to send them to me or to comment them below this video once the stream is re-uploaded and available for you guys to watch. And if you guys could do me a huge favor as we are wrapping up the stream and hit that like button if you haven't already, could be a little thumbs up or a little heart, and smash that follow or subscribe button. That would be fantastic. We love your guys' help in continuing to grow this community on all of our platforms. Before we go, I want to give a huge thank you and a huge shout out to our sponsor of today's stream, who's helping to make today possible, our friends over at Nori. You guys have heard me talk about them all the time, but I want to draw attention to them today on this stream in particular because they have such a huge focus on women's health and men's health, not vice versa. And I think it's really beautiful to see a supplement company start to stand up for that. I've been on this huge journey of detoxing everything in my life in the last few months, from the clothes that I'm wearing to the cleaning products that I use to the makeup I put on my face. And a big part of that is making sure that your gut microbiome is taken care of, because in order to detox your body, you have to make sure your immune system is strong, and that all starts in your gut microbiome. Nori is a wonderful and very accessible microbiome based solutions supplement company, and they are absolutely phenomenal. I love their products. I personally love their women's health probiotic. They have a digestive health supplement, and by far and away my favorite product of theirs is their signature Stay Well product. That's kind of like little packets of emergency. You can just put it in some water and stir it all up, and it tastes so much better and is so much cleaner with the ingredients that are all backed by science with no additives, made right here in the USA. If you guys travel a lot or you get sick a lot, Stay Well from Nori is absolutely your go-to to help you stay healthy while you are on the go. I just dropped the link in our chat for where you guys can grab your first Nori product, and don't forget to use code Isabel20 for a discount on your order. You guys, I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. As I said at the beginning of the stream today, we are back tomorrow with my awesome friend Graham Allen, fellow content creator and military veteran, to talk about the escalation of attacks that we are seeing on U.S. embassies, particularly in the Middle East this week, what some of these protests around the world are starting to look like, and what that might mean for the future of this conflict, and just some general updates on the ground, what's happening in Israel. Excited to have you guys back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, and Getter. I hope you guys jump over to Locals using the link I dropped in our chat, but no worries if not. We will see you tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. Locals, don't go anywhere. We will be right back.